And thank you for the organizers for the invitation. I'm really honored to be in the presence of such great speakers today. And I do want to specify that I've been invited to speak here in my personal capacity, and I do not represent the interests of any particular organization. I'm going to elaborate on 3 questions about how to link the UN 2023 conference to the COP28. First of all, how do we do that? Second of all, what do we articulate that linkage around substantively? And third, who needs to be involved? So addressing the how question, first of all, I think it's important not to think about outcomes from the UN 2023 Water Conference feeding directly into the COP28 process, because most likely those outcomes are probably not going to be fit for purpose. Instead, we have to envisage the overall systemic change that we're aiming for in the area of water and climate, and then break it down into smaller stepwise pieces in order to get there. The international agenda is such that we have multiple opportunities to come together, take stock, realign, and pursue action as a long-term change process. And that's the way that we really need to conceptualize this. The pathway from UN 2023 to COP28 has what could be a number of almost monthly stepping stone events that we can work off of. It seems to me that the UNFCCC subsidiary bodies intersessional meetings in June in Bonn is really an ideal place to sow seeds of cooperation with parties and stakeholders around specific water action for climate that has been committed at the UN 2023 conference, and that can then grow and be harvested in Dubai at COP28. Likewise, the HLPF that we just learned, will be reviewing SDG 6 in July. It will also be reviewing SDGs on affordable and clean energy, on industry, innovation, and infrastructure, on sustainable cities and communities, and as always, on partnerships. So could we envisage discussions between and across all of these SDGs at the HLPF that would generate mutual benefits for the simultaneous achievement under the overarching threat of climate change? If we take a closer look at the countries who have registered voluntary national reviews, which is the mechanism for reporting on progress on the SDGs at the country level, I know they're maybe not ideal, but it's what we've got. We can see the shape of some of the broader systemic issues that need to be addressed, such as monitoring, finance, and geographic disparities that actually could unite these communities around each of these SDGs to find common solutions together. Next, the World Water Week has already been mentioned. That provides an opportunity in Stockholm in August to come together and provide a platform to bring together those communities who have committed to advancing the UN 2023 outcomes together on a regular basis through the end of the decade for action and through to 2030. It can be an opportunity to take stock of progress and outcomes in the global arena, and then provide space to actually coordinate and align institutional and organizational priorities in order to move together towards a common horizon and design collective input into the following year's major processes, such as the HLPF or the COP. We've just heard about also about the UNGA SDG Summit and the Summit of the Future in September, which also happens in conjunction with the New York Climate Week. So again, there are different opportunities to seize here to come together. We have the Sendai midterm review. We have the World Bank annual meetings in October. We have the Sanitation and Water for All Finance Ministers meeting. And let's not forget regional opportunities, which are really important. There are opportunities such as the societal dialogues of the Commission on Economics of Water and plenty of others that will let us look at that at a more distinct level at the regional level. So then that leads us to the next question. What is it that we really want to achieve with COP28? And how do we design that pathway in smaller, more manageable steps using a language that speaks to climate specialists and can be integrated into existing UNFCCC mechanisms? The concept note that will serve to frame the discussion for the interactive dialogue on climate resilience and the environment at the UN 2023 Water Conference is still being refined, and working group members are striving to formulate those actions that can be considered as clear outcomes of the UN 2023 Water Conference through the Water Action Agenda. The recommendations that are formulated in the first draft of that note refer essentially to the SDG 6 Global Acceleration Framework, which is talking about solutions related to finance, data and information, capacity development, innovation, and governance. It evokes reducing water-related hazards and threats such as flooding, drought, and pollution, and reducing the resulting biodiversity loss. Frankly, we've heard all of this before, right? So there are other ideas that are evoked in that concept note that outline more specific action related to, for example, the Secretary General's Early Warning Systems for All initiative, or the creation of a global water information system, or a science-based mechanism like the IPCC, but specifically for water. The promotion of nature-based solutions and systemic whole-of-society approaches to risk-informed and adaptive governance to reduce vulnerability, the enhancement of policy and regulatory environments to spark innovation and support green jobs and skilled workforce, and the adoption of global standards for ecosystem accounting. So these are all really interesting ideas. Like we're discussing today, this note also encourages ensuring convergence between international processes, building on, connecting, and strengthening water-related decisions at global international fora. What I don't see reflected in this framing note for the moment is an understanding of how the UNFCCC actually works. There's no mention of NDCs, NAPs, stock takes, long-term strategies, or the global goal on adaptation, where water action that will increase climate resilience can actually be prioritized. What could be useful, for example, would be to encourage national climate risk assessment frameworks to take a water-centric approach in order for key institutions to be able to measure and manage resilience trade-offs. It could be interesting to consider how the Loss and Damage Fund might best support long-term climate and water resilience for affected populations. The note doesn't recognize issues of accountability of governments to enforce regulations, especially for polluters. It doesn't address the importance of urban planning and local and regional authorities in the implementation of national strategies where adaptation capacity, resilience, and vulnerability look very different from one place to another. It tackles some aspects of financing, but it doesn't evoke issues of poor disbursement of funding, which is hindering progress. It doesn't really acknowledge that countries do not have equivalent access to resources to make things happen. It doesn't prioritize the empowerment of women, youth, and disadvantaged populations who are more vulnerable to climate change and disasters and who are more severely disadvantaged. So in my opinion, there's still quite a lot of work to be done to refine the what in a way that is truly transformational and can be integrated into COP processes. But I trust that these improvements are going to appear in the final version of the note, which should be available in the coming weeks. It's also very much dependent on the country chairs and the panelists who are nominated to lead this discussion at the Water Conference, and also the rapporteurs who will formulate the outcomes of the dialogue. So on to the who. Well, the simple answer to that is obviously all of us have a shared responsibility to act and to create influence. The United Nations, as an organizer of the UN 2023 Water Conference, is expected to follow up on the outcomes of the conference and monitor their progress. Unfortunately, many of the problems that were already identified in 1977 still exist today. So we all have to be extremely diligent about ensuring that the conference outcomes are followed up on and succeed. The UN will need the ongoing support of other organizations and the goodwill and agency of all those who have committed to action through the Water Action Agenda in order to operationalize it, especially in terms of scaling and replicating action. But importantly, the UN conference has the potential to create the political space to talk about water at the global level and to engender more political commitment in favor of water action as a higher priority. Countries and stakeholders across the world need to enhance the political priority for water because all other progress is dependent on its availability. So we will need to foster water leadership and more political champions to be vocal about the importance of water security for sustainable development. And to this end, the proposal of the creation of a UN water envoy, which already has the support of over 140 countries, could be a valuable outcome of the UN 2023 Water Conference. So, as a certain young Swedish climate activist reminded us, the house is on fire. And I will leave you with one last thought. We are all the stewards for the water that can put out that fire if we commit now together to ambitious and ongoing collective action. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gaillard-Picher, for your elaboration about the link of between the water and climate agendas, and also highlighting the very important issues still pending within the water and the other agenda. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, as we